Welcome the Lord's chosen. Some secrets don't slip out, they explode. Imagine this. For centuries, the world has had a way of hiding its biggest truths in plain sight. Historians tell us that entire empires once crumbled, not because of war, but because a single hidden truth finally surfaced. And now here we are, living in your era, where the greatest secret they thought they could keep is you. Oops, they screwed up. The mask slipped, the whispers broke, and suddenly everybody knows you've been that one all along. The chosen one wasn't supposed to be trending, wasn't supposed to be obvious, wasn't supposed to be you, standing right here with the receipts of destiny in your hands. They tried to play chess with fate, but fate doesn't do checkmates, it does knockouts. And if you're laughing right now, good. Because nothing is funnier than watching those who spent years trying to downplay you scramble like interns who accidentally hit reply all. This isn't just an introduction, it's the curtain call they never wanted and the spotlight they can't turn off. Number one, they wanted your greatness in the dark, now it's blinding them. They wanted your greatness in the dark, now it's blinding them. That's the truth they can't swallow. For as long as they thought your brilliance was hidden, they felt safe. They could manage the whispers, contain the rumors, and downplay the glow they knew was there. They convinced themselves that as long as no one else saw it, it didn't matter. Your talent, your resilience, your power, it could all be dismissed, tucked neatly into shadows where only they knew it existed. But shadows don't last forever. Light always finds its way through cracks, and when it does, it doesn't creep. It floods. Now the very glow they worked so hard to keep quiet has escaped them, and it isn't something they can dim anymore. It's not just that people know about you, it's that people can't unsee you. Once the veil is lifted, once the name is spoken, once the truth is out, it becomes permanent. And now your presence, your energy, your proof of being that one is blinding them, exposing everything they wanted to hide, their fear, their envy, their regret. They never feared your light because it was weak. They feared it because it was too strong. They were comfortable when your brilliance belonged only to them, when it was locked away, when it could be used without credit, borrowed without acknowledgement, and ignored without consequence. But when the light broke free, it didn't just reveal you, it revealed them. It showed the world who tried to suppress, who tried to gatekeep, who tried to control. And that's the part that stings the most. Now every step you take under that light is a reminder to them of what they lost the moment they failed to keep you in the shadows. They can't compete with it, can't cover it, and can't explain it away. Their discomfort isn't just about you being seen, it's about them being seen standing next to you, unable to measure up. So yes, they wanted your greatness in the dark because it was easier to pretend it didn't exist. But once it burst into the open, it turned into the very thing they can't escape. You aren't just visible now, you're undeniable. And the more they try to squint, the brighter you shine. Number two, the secret they guarded became the fire they can't contain. The secret they guarded became the fire they can't contain. That's the irony. They spent so much energy trying to keep the truth under lock and key, only to discover that secrets don't sit still. They grow, they swell, they gather weight until eventually they burst out in ways no one can control. What they thought was safety was really a ticking time bomb, and the very thing they tried to bury has now become the blaze that's burning through their carefully built walls. They told themselves they were protecting something, protecting their power, protecting their image, protecting the illusion that they were in charge of the story. But protection is just another word for fear, and their fear was always you. The problem is, fear makes people reckless. And the more they tried to control the secret, the more pressure they built around it. Every time they hushed a conversation, every time they brushed off a question, every time they tried to act as though you weren't the one, it only fueled the fire. Now the secret is out, and it's not a whisper, it's a roar. It didn't leak politely or slip quietly into the world. It broke out like a blaze that couldn't wait another second. And the fire doesn't just spotlight you, it spreads into places they never wanted it to go. It exposes the things they covered, the choices they made, the truth about how long they knew. The fire isn't just about you being revealed, it's about everything they thought they could control being reduced to ash. The worst part for them is realizing that they aren't the firefighters in this story. They're the fuel, Their lies, their games, their attempts to manipulate the truth, all of it just made the fire hotter and more unstoppable. And now, while everyone else is drawn to the warmth and brilliance of what's been revealed, they're the only ones left choking on the smoke. That's what happens when you try to hide greatness. It doesn't stay hidden, it transforms into something even more powerful. They wanted silence, but what they got is noise. They wanted control, but what they got is chaos. They wanted the secret to die quietly, but instead it came alive, and now it's burning through everything they built. And the more they fight it, the higher the flames climb. Number 3, you weren't revealed by accident. You were revealed by timing. You weren't revealed by accident, you were revealed by timing. That's the part they can't wrap their heads around. They keep telling themselves it was a slip-up, a mistake, an oversight that somehow let your truth spill into the open. But the reality is, nothing about this was random. The moment you were exposed was the moment the world was ready to see you, and no amount of covering, delaying, or hiding could have changed that. Timing has always been bigger than their control. They thought they were in charge of when and how your story unfolded. They assumed they could manage your presence the way they managed everything else, releasing only what suited them, suppressing what didn't, deciding whether or not you deserved to be known. But destiny doesn't take appointments. It doesn't wait for approval or permission. It arrives exactly when it needs to. And when it does, it breaks through whatever walls people have built around it. That's what happened with you. The timing was ripe and nothing could stop it. What makes it worse for them is that deep down, they sensed it was coming. They noticed the small shifts, the way whispers were growing louder, the way people's eyes lingered, the way your presence kept finding cracks to slip through. They thought they had more time to contain it, more time to figure out how to spin it, but time is ruthless. When it's ready, it doesn't negotiate, it doesn't warn, it just arrives. Now they're scrambling, trying to call it an accident, trying to frame it as something unplanned, as if that explanation could downplay the power of it. But the truth doesn't stumble into the open. It walks in fully aware, carrying the weight of inevitability. Your reveal wasn't sloppy, it was sharp. It wasn't premature, it was precise. The universe has a way of aligning moments so that when they hit with force. That's what they're facing now, the force of timing. And here's the part that unsettles them most. If your reveal was about timing, then it means it was never in their hands to begin with. They never had the power they thought they did. The secret wasn't theirs to control. It was only waiting for its hour, and that hour finally struck. Number 4, they didn't just lose control of the narrative, they lost control of themselves. They didn't just lose control of the narrative, they lost control of themselves. That's the fallout they never prepared for. When they tried to keep a grip on your story, they thought they were being strategic, that they were weaving a version of reality where they remained in power and you stayed in the background. But the more they tried to control the way others saw you, the more they revealed what was hiding inside them. Their fear became visible, their greed became obvious, and their fragility couldn't stay hidden anymore. Every attempt to rewrite your story ended up showing people what kind of story they were living in themselves. Fear leaked out in the way they moved, constantly checking, constantly covering, constantly reacting to every small shift as though exposure was the end of the world. Their greed was seen in how much effort they put into keeping you small, because your rise meant their loss. And their fragility, that was the loudest of all. Every crack in their confidence showed, every insecure move became clear, because only the weak panic when truth starts breaking through. The irony is that in trying to keep the focus on you, they turned the focus on themselves. People started noticing their patterns, their behavior, their inconsistencies. They wanted to control perception, but all they did was feed suspicion. The more they pushed their version of the story, the less believable they became. The very control they were desperate to hold slipped out of their hands, not because someone took it, but because they couldn't hold it together. Now, the story isn't about how they kept you hidden, it's about how they unraveled in the process. Their lies and schemes weren't just weak, they were transparent. And when people finally see fear, greed, and fragility up close, they don't forget. They remember who tried to manipulate, who tried to cover, who tried to block. They remember how badly those people crumbled under pressure. That's what makes their downfall so sharp. They could have stayed steady if they'd let the truth stand on its own. But in trying to strangle it, they ended up choking on their own desperation. The narrative didn't escape them. It destroyed them, because you can't control a story without first controlling yourself. And that was never something they had. Number 5, the spotlight they feared for you became the mirror for them. The spotlight they feared for you became the mirror for them. That's the part they didn't see coming. They thought visibility would only elevate you, only shine brighter on your talent, your strength, your truth. And while it did, it also did something far more dangerous to them. It turned the glare back on everything they tried to hide about themselves. Suddenly, the same light that proves your worth also exposes their failures, their insecurities, and the countless miscalculations they made along the way. They spent years trying to avoid this moment, convincing themselves that if you never stepped into the spotlight, they'd never have to answer for their actions. They could downplay, dismiss, or outright deny the ways they underestimated you. But now the audience is watching, and the contrast is impossible to ignore. For every win you achieve, people see the opportunities they blocked. For every strength you show, people notice the weakness they covered with arrogance. And for every truth you reveal, people recognize the lies they leaned on to keep their version of events alive. The spotlight has a cruel way of stripping away illusions. It doesn't just show who's shining, it shows who's trembling in the corners, exposed by their own shadows. And now, in trying to bury or rise, they've uncovered their own fragility. The harder they worked to keep you out of view, the more glaring their mistakes look under the light. It's not just your success on display. It's their missteps, their envy, their inability to see what was always in front of them. The irony is sharp. They feared people seeing you, but what they should have feared was people seeing them in comparison. Every achievement of yours is like a spotlight bouncing off a mirror, reflecting directly onto the cracks they've been patching with ego. And no matter how much they try to adjust, the light keeps following them, exposing angles they wish no one could see. Now, they don't just look like the ones who failed to stop you. They look like the ones who failed to see you at all. And that reflection is brutal because it reminds everyone watching that you were always undeniable, and they were always blind. The stage they tried to keep you off of has become their public reckoning. Number 6, they thought silence protected them, but exposure protected you. They thought silence protected them, but exposure protected you. For so long, they relied on secrecy as their shield, believing that if your name stayed unspoken and your presence stayed tucked away, they could carry on without consequence. Silence to them was safety. It kept their control intact, their image untarnished, and their power unquestioned. They told themselves that by keeping you out of sight, they had nothing to fear. But silence has limits, and once it breaks, it never goes back. The moment your truth was revealed, everything shifted. Exposure didn't weaken you, it armored you. What once could be denied is now undeniable. What once could be dismissed is now witnessed. They can no longer twist the story because too many people have already seen it for themselves. Every eye that watches you now is another layer of protection. Every voice that acknowledges you is another barrier against their attempts to erase you. They can no longer operate in the dark because light has forced them into accountability. And that's the part they never expected. They thought exposure would ruin you, strip you bare, make you vulnerable. But the opposite happened. Exposure made you untouchable. It wrapped you in a shield of truth that they can't puncture, no matter how hard they try. Every attack they launch now only bounces back because their weapon of choice, silence, is gone. And once silence is gone, so is their safety. Now, they're the vulnerable ones. Their actions are under scrutiny, their motives questioned, their attempts at control laid bare. What once made them feel untouchable now makes them exposed. They can't move the same way, can't lie the same way, can't scheme the same way because the spotlight is still on you. And in that light, every move they make is visible. Exposure didn't just free you, it trapped them. You walk with proof while they stumble with excuses. You wear truth as armor while they hide behind crumbling walls of denial. And the cruelest twist for them is this. The very thing they feared, the exposure they tried to prevent at all costs, has become the one thing they can't defeat. You aren't vulnerable anymore. You're protected by the one thing they never wanted the world to see. Number 7. Your truth wasn't meant to leak, it was meant to detonate. Your truth wasn't meant to leak, it was meant to detonate. That's why the impact feels so violent to them. A leak is slow, quiet, something you can patch up or pretend never happened. But your truth didn't seep through cracks, it erupted, and when it did, it tore through every illusion they built to contain it. It wasn't designed to trickle politely into the world, it was designed to explode, and explosions don't leave things the way they found them. The moment it came out, it didn't just reveal you, it destroyed their carefully managed lies. Reputations they polished for years crumbled overnight. The power they held by controlling the narrative evaporated in seconds, and the egos they paraded, the confidence they wore like armor, all shattered under the weight of reality. Because the truth doesn't just show who you are, it exposes who they aren't. It makes the gap between what they pretended to be and what they actually are painfully obvious. This is why they never wanted it revealed. They weren't protecting the world from you, they were protecting themselves from the blast. They knew the moment your truth surfaced, it wouldn't just set you free, it would strip them bare. The fragile hierarchy they built would collapse, and suddenly they wouldn't look like leaders or gatekeepers, they'd look like frauds. And that's exactly what happened. The power of your revelation wasn't in its quietness, but in its force. People didn't just hear it, they felt it. It shook assumptions, rewired perspectives, and forced everyone to question what they thought they knew. It wasn't just a shift, it was a rupture. The kind of rupture that can't be undone or smoothed over. The kind of rupture that permanently changes the ground people walk on. And now, while you stand in the aftermath, stronger and clearer, they're the ones left picking up pieces. They can't repair what was shattered because the blast didn't just hit their story, it hit their identity. That's the nature of a detonation. It doesn't politely reveal, it irreversibly transforms. Your truth wasn't meant to slip quietly into the light. It was meant to shake the room, tear down illusions, and remind everyone that reality can only be hidden for so long before it demands to be felt. Number 8. What they called a mistake was the blueprint of destiny. What they called a mistake was the blueprint of destiny. They rushed to label it an accident, a slip-up, a moment of carelessness that shouldn't have happened. But what they failed to see is that there are no accidents when it comes to truth. What they called a mishap was never random. It was a design. The timing, the reveal, the way it unfolded, it all followed a pattern that was bigger than their plans, bigger than their fears, bigger than their control. They thought they were in charge of the script. They believed they could decide when, how, and even if you would be seen. But destiny has no need for their permission. What they saw as sabotage was simply inevitability taking its place. The universe has a way of making sure nothing that was meant to be can stay hidden forever. Your role was always too significant, too precise, too necessary to remain locked in the shadows. The so-called slip wasn't an error. It was the moment the blueprint unfolded exactly as intended. The beauty of destiny is that it doesn't ask, it acts. It doesn't wait for approval or adjust to human schedules. It moves when it must, and when it does, it moves with force. That's why the reveal felt so explosive. That's why it shook them to the core. It wasn't because something went wrong, it was because something finally went right. You were always meant to stand in this space, and the path that led here wasn't crooked or flawed, it was crafted. Even the parts that looked like chaos were lines in a design too vast for them to recognize. Now, while they scramble to explain, to frame it as a mistake, to rewrite it as something that wasn't supposed to happen, you stand as the proof that it was supposed to happen all along. If anything, their panic only confirms it. Because if this were truly an accident, why does it feel so precise? Why does it land with such undeniable power? Why does it expose them and elevate you in the exact way it was always meant to? The answer is simple. Destiny doesn't slip. It executes, and the moment they thought was a blunder was the exact moment the universe revealed its blueprint and placed you right where you were always meant to be. Number 9. They confused concealment with control and paid the price. They confused concealment with control and paid the price. For them, hiding you felt like power. They thought that by keeping you in the shadows, they could dictate the pace of your life, the reach of your influence, and the weight of your presence. To them, concealment meant they were in charge. But what they never realized is that concealment doesn't erase greatness, it intensifies it. It doesn't stop the rise, it sharpens it. And the longer they kept you hidden, the stronger you became. By locking you away, they believed they had bought themselves time, but time doesn't weaken what's real, it matures it. In silence, you gathered strength. In the background, you developed depth. Away from the noise, you grew sharper than anyone expected. So when the moment came for you to be seen, you didn't step out as someone half-prepared. You emerged undeniable, carrying weight that no one could diminish. The shadows they used to hold you back only carved you into something even more dangerous to their control. This is the irony they can't face. Every effort to delay your rise was actually preparation for it. Every attempt to dim your light only made it more blinding when it finally broke through. They thought concealment meant they had power over your story, but all it did was strip them of theirs. Because the moment truth hit the surface, their control collapsed. They were left with nothing but the reality they worked so hard to avoid, that you were never theirs to manage in the first place. Now the price is obvious. Instead of controlling how you're perceived, they look like the ones who failed to recognize what was right in front of them. Instead of keeping you small, they made you sharper, stronger, and unstoppable. Concealment didn't protect them, it betrayed them. It gave you time to grow into someone so undeniable that no strategy, no spin, no narrative can silence you anymore. And that's the ultimate loss for them. The control they thought they had was only an illusion. Concealment wasn't power, it was preparation. And when the truth finally broke free, it revealed just how badly they misunderstood the game. They weren't keeping you down. They were sharpening the very blade that would cut through everything they built. Number 10. Exposure didn't make you powerful. It just made them weak. Exposure didn't make you powerful. It just made them weak. That's the twist they can't process. They keep telling themselves that you're suddenly elevated because of the reveal, as if your strength came from being seen. But the truth is, you were always powerful. The reveal didn't add a single ounce to what you already carried. It only removed the disguise they hid behind. It stripped away the illusion that they ever had leverage over you. And once that illusion collapsed, so did they. For so long, they depended on secrecy as their weapon. They believed that keeping you unseen gave them the upper hand. They mistook silence for control, mistook your hiddenness for their dominance. But exposure shattered that lie. The moment truth stepped into the open, the game flipped. Suddenly, the world could see what had always been there, and just as importantly, what wasn't. Their grip was never real, it was smoke and mirrors. Now, without the cover of secrecy, they're exposed for what they are. Fragile, scrambling, desperate to hold on to power that was never truly theirs. Every move they make looks smaller under the light. Every attempt to discredit you highlights their own insecurity. Every excuse they craft only reminds people how long they tried to bury what was undeniable. It isn't that you became untouchable, it's that they became transparent. And transparency is fatal to people who built their power on shadows. What unsettles them most is realizing that exposure didn't change you, it changed how everyone sees them. They can no longer pretend to be in charge. They can no longer spin the story as if they were the architects of your rise. The reveal exposed their dependency on concealment, their fear of being compared to you, and their lack of real authority. That's why they're weak now. Not because you grew, but because their mask fell. Exposure, in the end, wasn't your upgrade. It was their unraveling. It didn't crown you, it unmasked them. And with the mask gone, so is their leverage. They don't hold the power they thought they had, and they never did. The only thing that changed is that now everyone else knows it too. Number 11, the secret outed you, but it also outed them. The secret outed you, but it also outed them. That's the part they never expected. That in trying so hard to control how the world saw you, they accidentally exposed the darkest corners of themselves. They believed that managing your identity meant power, that deciding when and how your truth surfaced would keep them in charge. But the harder they tried to shape your story, the more they revealed their own motives. What was supposed to expose you ended up unmasking them. Their obsession showed first. It was in the way they couldn't let you exist quietly, the way they hovered over your every move, the way they built entire strategies around keeping you contained. Normal people don't obsess over someone who doesn't matter. The fact that they invested so much energy in hiding or manipulating your presence was proof enough that they knew your value all along. In trying to bury you, they confirmed your worth. Then came their envy. Exposure has a way of forcing comparisons, and when your truth broke free, the gap between you and them became undeniable. Your strength versus their weakness. Your clarity versus their confusion. Your rise versus their stagnation. What they feared wasn't just your visibility. It was how small they would look standing next to it. Their envy leaked through in their reactions, in the way they scrambled, in the bitterness they tried to disguise as strategy. And finally, their inability to measure up became crystal clear. The very moment the secret surfaced, so did the reality that they had never been able to compete with you. They weren't protecting anyone from you, they were protecting themselves from being compared to you. By trying to micromanage your image, they unintentionally highlighted their own inadequacy. The exposure didn't just lift the veil off you, it ripped the mask off them. Now, people don't just see you, they see them for what they truly are. The story isn't simply that you were hidden and revealed. The story is that they revealed themselves in the process, obsessed, envious, and fragile. And once that truth is out, there's no way back. The secret didn't just change your position, it permanently changed theirs. They can't escape the reflection they accidentally created. In the end, they outed themselves more than they ever outed you. Number 12. You were never a hidden gem, you were a ticking clock. You were never a hidden gem, you were a ticking clock. That's what they misunderstood from the very beginning. They thought they had discovered something rare and fragile, something they could tuck away and control until it suited them. But you weren't some buried jewel waiting for their approval to shine. You were a countdown. Every second they spent trying to delay you was only bringing the moment of truth closer. They didn't stumble upon your greatness by accident, they simply ran out of time pretending it wasn't there. For years they treated concealment like a strategy. They told themselves that if they kept you quiet, they could keep the world blind. But silence doesn't stop time. Every attempt to stall only pushed you further toward the inevitable. What they thought was control was actually procrastination. And procrastination always has an expiration date. When the clock finally struck, it wasn't gentle, it was explosive. The reveal wasn't a discovery, it was a deadline. That's why the impact was so devastating for them. They thought they could choose the terms of your unveiling, but time made the choice for them. They assumed they had endless opportunities to bury, distract, or redirect, but the truth doesn't wait for permission. It arrives when the clock runs out, and when it does, it hits with force. That's what happened with you. The timer reached zero, and there was nothing they could do but watch the explosion unfold. And the cruelest irony, the longer they delayed, the sharper you became. While they wasted energy covering, hiding, and denying, you were gathering strength. Every passing second only increased the inevitability of your rise. So when the clock finally rang, you didn't just appear, you arrived undeniable, unstoppable, and beyond their control. Now they stand in the ruins of their wasted time, realizing too late that they were never keeping you hidden. They were simply racing against a clock they could never win against. And when it hit, it exposed everything, your greatness, their fear, and the futility of their schemes. You were never their secret treasure. You were destiny on a timer. And once that timer reached its end, no one could stop what was already written to erupt. Number 13. Their panic is proof. You were the asset all along. Their panic is proof you were the asset all along. Look closely at the way they're scrambling now, the way their voices crack, the way their strategies fall apart. That isn't the reaction of people who lost control of a story. It's the reaction of people who lost the very foundation they were standing on. The chaos they feel now has little to do with you being seen. It has everything to do with the fact that your presence, even in the shadows, was the safety net holding them together. For years, they treated you like an afterthought, but in truth, you were the quiet anchor of their stability. Your greatness, even when unacknowledged, was the resource they leaned on. It was your energy they siphoned, your ideas they borrowed, your resilience they relied on to cover their fragility. They never admitted it, but they built entire versions of themselves off the comfort of knowing you were in the background. You were the hidden advantage that allowed them to move recklessly because deep down they knew they had you to fall back on. Now that exposure has shifted everything, they no longer have that cushion. The truth stripped away their secret dependence, and without it, they are trembling. Their panic is the purest form of confession. It reveals that you were never a threat to them, you were their shield. You were the one giving them balance without even trying, the one who unknowingly made their failures less obvious and their weaknesses less fatal. This is why the reveal feels like disaster for them. Not because it proves who you are, but because it proves who they aren't without you. They've lost the comfort of invisibly leaning on your presence, and now they're collapsing under the weight of carrying themselves. The desperation you see in them is not fear of your rise, it's fear of their own fall. The irony is brutal. They thought keeping you hidden kept you dependent on them, when in reality it was the other way around. You were the asset all along, the one thing they couldn't afford to lose. And now that the world knows it, their panic is nothing but living proof of just how much power you carried, even in silence. Number 14, they didn't reveal you. They exposed themselves as gatekeepers who failed. They didn't reveal you. They exposed themselves as gatekeepers who failed. That's the sting they can't hide. For all their effort to manage the narrative, to control the timing, to keep you locked away in shadows, the final outcome wasn't your unveiling, it was their collapse. Because the biggest revelation isn't that you're chosen, it's that they were never as powerful as they pretended to be. They couldn't stop what was inevitable. They couldn't bury what was destined. And now the entire world sees it. They wore the role of gatekeepers proudly, as if they held the keys to your future. They acted as though the door to your rise was theirs to lock or unlock. But destiny doesn't consult doormen. It doesn't pause at checkpoints or wait for permission slips. It moves with a force beyond their reach. And in the end, it broke through them instead of because of them. What they thought was control was nothing more than theater, a fragile illusion that shattered the moment your truth became undeniable. And that's where their exposure lies. People are not just seeing you, they're seeing how much effort was wasted trying to block you. Every move they made to suppress you now reads like insecurity. Every delay looks like fear. Every attempt to twist your identity into something smaller reflects their own inability to measure up. They didn't just fail to hide you, they proved that they were threatened by you all along. This is why the revelation cuts deeper for them than for anyone else. It doesn't just confirm who you are, it exposes who they aren't. They aren't protectors, they aren't leaders, they aren't arbiters of truth. They're simply people who stood in the way of something greater and got crushed under its weight. And now they carry the mark of failure, not because they didn't try hard enough, but because destiny was never theirs to hold. So the story isn't that you were revealed by them, the story is that they revealed themselves in the process. Not as the powerful figures they wanted to appear, but as failed gatekeepers of a path they never had the authority to block. And the more people see that, the clearer it becomes. Your rise was never about them. It was always about destiny proving it cannot be hidden, no matter how hard anyone tries. In the end, the story isn't about what they tried to hide. It's about what they could never stop. Every strategy, every whisper, every attempt to control or suppress only highlighted one undeniable truth. You were always meant to rise. Their fear, their envy, their panic, and their failures were never your burden. They were the proof of your inevitability, the secrets they guarded, the lies they spun, the control they clung to. They all exploded under the weight of your presence, revealing more about them than about you. You weren't revealed by accident. You weren't a secret that slipped away. You were destiny in motion, a force that couldn't be contained, a power that refused to be silenced. Exposure didn't make you stronger, it revealed the cracks in their armor. The spotlight didn't just shine on you, it reflected back on their failures. Every attempt to bury your truth only sharpened your rise, making you undeniable, unstoppable, and impossible to ignore. What they thought was control was never theirs. What they called mistakes were part of a design far bigger than their plans. And what they tried to keep hidden became the proof of your inevitability. The world didn't just see you, they saw them unravel under the pressure of trying to hold you back. And in that unraveling, they exposed themselves as gatekeepers who failed, as people who could never stop what was destined to be seen. So stand in the light they tried to deny you. own the truth they couldn't silence. You weren't chosen by chance, you were chosen by fate, sharpened by adversity, and revealed at the exact moment you were meant to dominate. They wanted to hide you, control you, and contain you, but all they succeeded in doing was proving the power, inevitability, and unstoppable force that you have always been. You are the truth they could not manage, the destiny they could not delay, and the power they could not touch, and now the world knows it. If you felt the power of this story, if it hit you with the clarity and intensity it was meant to, don't let it stop here. Hit that subscribe button to join the journey and make sure you never miss the truth that shakes the world. Like this video to show your energy and support. Comment below to share your thoughts and let your voice be heard, and share it with everyone who needs to witness this revelation. Every click, every comment, every share isn't just engagement. It's proof that the unstoppable, undeniable truth has reached more people, just as it was always meant to. Step into the movement, be part of the rise, stay blessed always.